Are you superstitious? Even if you're thinking, no, I'm so enlightened, I'm so smart and logical, and I'm a woman in STEM, no. All women are superstitious. And if you're not superstitious, then you are at least a little stitious. And let me tell you why. Unfortunately, women have been conditioned to think in superstitious terms. We're taught to believe that if I give everything, then I'll finally be enough. If I suffer quietly, I'll be rewarded later. If someone loves me, then I'll love myself. These are superstitions that we are taught to believe, and the reason I call them superstitions is because a superstition is defined as a belief or practice resulting from ignorance, fear of the unknown, trust in magic or chance, or a false conception of causation. By believing that if we give enough of ourselves or if we receive validation from people, then we become worthy, we are inherently being guided by a superstition. Because like I said, this definition of superstition by Miss Merriam-Webster says that a superstition is a practice or a belief resulting from trust in magic or chance, right? We're leaving things up to chance, or a false conception of causation. The causation being other people's validation. And I would go so far as to say that it is a trust in magic. It's a trust in black magic because we've tainted our perception of ourselves so much that we have to seek reassurance and validation from other people, from somebody else whose disposition about the world, about us, is extremely fickle and dependent on their mood, their worldview, their beliefs, their traumas, their insecurities, and an infinite number of other things. So if you think you're not superstitious, think again. So today's episode topic is once again decided by you baddies who voted on these topics in a poll on my Instagram story. By you baddies who voted on in a poll on my Instagram story a few weeks ago. And the solo episode that I did, when I say solo episode, I mean my episodes that aren't a girly law. The solo episode that I did 2 weeks ago was about being aware of woke men, the Delta men. And that was the topic that won the poll. But it was a really close vote between that topic and this one. And, I figured I have to give my baddies what they want because y'all are the OGs. And if you want an episode on people pleasing as mental poverty, then you shall get an episode on people pleasing as mental poverty. So let's talk about how people pleasing is a form of mental poverty. Before we do that, remember how I forget to introduce myself in every episode? So I just remembered. Let's do that right now. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the baddest bitch in the building. I am your host, Neeki. I am the baddest bitch in the building, not to be confused with you, who is also the baddest bitch in the building. And y'all know, or maybe you don't, the reason I was put on this earth was to really form a community and form a movement for women who are fed up with living under a patriarchy, who know that there's so much more that the world has to offer. And that's why this podcast exists, because we live under a patriarchy, but the system has loopholes, the system has cracks. And my job is to identify those cracks and to identify the ways that we as women can be successful under this system, especially when it comes to unlearning a lot of the crap and conditioning that we've been taught throughout our lives to make us small. Because if women weren't so inherently powerful just by existing, then the system wouldn't even be here in the first place. So it's kind of an ego boost in the most twisted way possible. All right, back to our topic. People pleasing is a form of mental poverty because if we take a step back, what is poverty? It's not just lacking money and not being able to afford things. Poverty fundamentally is lacking something and suffering because of it. So you can be in poverty from a financial standpoint, but you can also be in poverty from a mental or a spiritual standpoint. You can even be in poverty from a self-love standpoint. You can be in poverty from any type of way. It does not have to be financial. But when we think of it only in terms of finance, that makes us ignorant to a lot of other ways that we can end up lacking things and suffering because of that lack. People pleasing is lacking boundaries and suffering because of that. So, people pleasing is a form of mental poverty, or we can just call it poverty. It's a form of poverty because you're lacking something and you're suffering because of it. I want you to think of people pleasing as an action rooted in superstition, because people pleasing is informed or is caused by the superstition that if I give everything, then I'll finally be enough. If I say yes, then I'll finally be enough. If other people love me or like me, then I will love or like myself. And it's superstition, like I said, because you've put an unnecessary amount of power in chance, in black magic. Literally, we're going to call it black magic. We're going to call it what it is, because anything that preys off of women lacking boundaries, self-love, confidence, or anything that preys off of women being small is a form of black magic, because it's exploitation and it's evil. It's literally evil. At its root, it is evil because it is guided by bad intentions. It's exploiting something based on another person's weakness. So we have to start thinking of things as what they really are. People pleasing is not just a behavior, it's a form of exploitation. And I hear this from time to time, somebody saying, "Oh, I'm a people pleaser, so I have to do this. I'm a people pleaser, so it's hard for me to say no." Like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what are you romanticizing that? Are you flaunting that? That's like me saying, "Oh, yeah, I have an anxiety disorder, so it's just it's really hard for me to fall asleep sometimes." What? Hello? I don't Oh. Time out. Time out. I am Zen. I am not having a mental breakdown. I am not glitching. I am not going to crash out. I am Zen. I am the baddest bitch in the building. I am Zen. When did these things become romanticized? The amount of brainwashing that has to happen for somebody to take pride in a character trait that is there for people to exploit you, the amount of brainwashing that needs to happen for that is blows my mind. I don't think I've ever heard, nor will I ever hear a man flaunting that he is a people pleaser and being aware of this issue and not only flaunting it but not doing anything about it and making it part of his personality. Whew. Like, a guy will make a lot of stupid things part of his personality, like cars and UFC and all that crap, but it's never going to be something that is there to exploit him and be self-deprecating and put him in service to other people. Let me tell you that. So, going back to the superstition, people pleasing is a form of mental poverty because your lack of boundaries and your lack of self-validation is going to be your downfall. And it might not be, culminate in like a big, downfall moment or something like that. No, it's going to be worse than that. It's going to be a process, because your downfall is going to be ingrained in pretty much everything. It's going to be ingrained in your career and your work life and your romantic relationships and your relationship with yourself. So it's not like you're, on a path and it culminates in this big downfall, this apex or whatever you want to call it. No, it is just the whole the whole process of you living your life in servitude to other people, that is the downfall. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to be a yes man, a yes ma'am. I'm not going to like beat around the bush or anything like that. Like, I'm literally here to tell you what it is, how it is, or whatever it is. Tell you as it is. I'm here to tell y'all the truth. Okay? And the truth is that people pleasing is basically a form of living your life in servitude to other people. And it might not necessarily be servitude to other people. It could be servitude to the way that other people make you feel. Because you're seeking things from other people that you should be giving to yourself. You're seeking validation from other people. You're seeking approval from other people. Or you're seeking avoidance from rejection, avoidance from conflict, avoidance from people being upset with you, which, again, that fear is rooted in a lack of self-validation and a lack of self-love. So everything that you do goes back to that superstition of, if I give everything, I'll finally be enough. If someone else loves me, then I'll finally love myself. Because you've put all this power into chance, into other people's hands, into black magic, right? The black magic that is exploiting women's vulnerabilities and women's labor, emotional labor. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this is your fault. Like, if you are a people pleaser, then you are 100% to blame. I'm not saying that, because a lot of these tendencies are rooted in, obviously, the society in which we live. It's also rooted in culture. It's rooted in your upbringing, in the way that your parents treated one another, in the way that your parents treated you. There's a lot more that goes into it than meets the eye, but there's a lot of unlearning that needs to be done. I'm going to quote the greatest movie of all time, Shrek. Women are like onions. And I mean this in the most beautiful way, because we're not like smelly, stinky onions. We have layers. We have layers. At the core is a woman who loves herself, who wants the best for herself, who treats herself like a queen and carries herself as such and expects people to treat her as such. That is at the core. The layers on the outside are the conditioning that we've been faced with, right, as women living in a patriarchy. It's the cultural norms and values that we've learned. It's our upbringing. It's our experiences, our life experiences, traumas. All those things are layers. And in order to peel back each layer, we have to first be aware that that layer exists. We have to be aware that, oh, this element of my upbringing made me a certain way. We have to understand that. And then we have to unlearn the things that we have been taught. That's not to say that unlearning these things is easy or quick or painless, but a lot of the work, like half of the work, just comes from being aware of that. So for people who romanticize being people pleasers and who take almost like a perverted sense of pride in it, they are so far away from peeling that layer away. They're so far away from that. And there's so much unlearning that they need to do to get to the point of being like, oh, well, this is actually a very harmful behavior to myself. And then beginning to unlearn the patterns of behavior and the thought processes that go behind that. But if you're listening to this episode right now, you know that people pleasing is a form of mental poverty. You know that people pleasing is a form of giving yourself excessively and depleting yourself for other people, to be in servitude to other people. You know that it's based on superstition. You know these things. So just by listening to this and being aware of this, you're at least you're halfway there. You're halfway to peeling back that layer and shedding the people pleasing that is holding you back from so many things in life. Just like how I said in my law 23 about how when you're in a competitive mindset, you are always going to be in survival mode. When you're people pleasing, you're also in survival mode because you're in mental poverty. You can't even get into growth mode and focus on yourself because you're too focused on pleasing other people, avoiding conflict, getting validation from other people, and getting whatever else you need from other people. And the actions, right, of doing whatever it is that you need to do in servitude to other people, those actions draw on the same energy, the same mental and physical energy as self betterment. If you use those resources on other people, you have none left over for yourself. That's why my law number 13 or 12, I think, is on treating things like a business and thinking of things in terms of what you're giving. As women, a lot of our giving is intangible because we're giving with our energy, our empathy, and a lot of other things that cannot be easily measured and quantified. We're giving with things that don't have a value assigned to it because they're precious, they're priceless. If you're giving with your energy, that's one of the highest forms of giving that you can provide to a person. So whoever receives that needs to be deserving of it. When you are a people pleaser, you're giving to people who the majority of them are not deserving. The majority of them are receiving from you out of your lack of self-worth, your lack of self-love and validation, or out of your fear of conflict. So people pleasing is a form of mental poverty, but that doesn't mean you are doomed to live on welfare and be on food stamps for the rest of your life. Okay? You can come out of that poverty. And that comes in understanding that you were not put on this earth to serve other people. You were not put on this earth to suffer. You were not put on this earth to give excessively to other people. You were not put on this earth to please other people. Your mother did not carry you for 9 months and then go through an excruciating labor and then go through the difficulty of raising you for 18 plus years for you to be in servitude to other people and to be in mental poverty because you were a people pleaser. But more than anything, your value does not come from what you give other people. Your value comes from who you are and how you view yourself. If you view yourself as a peasant, then you are going to value yourself as a peasant. If you view yourself as a queen, then you will treat yourself as such and you will expect people to treat you as such, and you will not go out of your way to please other people and to do things out of the superstition that people are going to give you validation and give you the love that you are seeking from yourself. If you treat yourself like a peasant, then absolutely you are going to be in poverty for the rest of your life and you're going to be in survival mode forever. And the only person who can take you out of that survival mode and pull you out of that mental poverty is you and me to a certain extent. But my job now is done. I've made you aware of that layer of the onion that we need to peel back. I mean, my job might not be done. I mean, if there's an episode that I can do to help you on the next step, then my DMs and my emails are always open for episode suggestions. But it's your turn. We've gotten to the point now where half of the work is done. You've become aware of this. You understand how detrimental it is to be a people pleaser. And when the revolution comes, you're going to realize that all the things that you did for other people to please them, to get validation, to avoid conflict, all those things, you're probably not even going to remember a lot of them. You're probably not going to remember most of them. What you will remember is the crappy feeling you got when you said yes when you should have said no. When you went out of your way to do something and that person didn't even appreciate it to begin with because they were probably taking advantage of your tendency to be a people pleaser. Like, tell me the last time you did something out of your people pleasing tendencies and you were like, I'm glad I did this and I feel appreciated, I feel valued, and I'd be happy to do this again. Yay, I'm so glad I did this. Probably never. But I'm willing to bet that you can name multiple times when you did something out of people pleasing and you remember how crappy you felt or how unappreciated you felt or how regretful you felt for doing that. And then you went and did the same thing again. Again, there's no blame here. There's no finger pointing, because a lot of us, we think, well, this is the way things are going to be. I'm a people pleaser, and this is just the way the cards were dealt for me. But the hack, and this is not even a patriarchy hack, this is a life hack. The hack is realizing that nothing is set in stone. Everything can be changed. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Rules are made up. There's no such thing as, oh, well, that's just the way things are and it can't change. Absolutely, it can change. That's the way things are because somebody consciously decided to make it that way, which means that someone can just as easily come in and decide to make it another way. So don't take things at face value. Don't accept things that don't serve you. Don't accept things that make you feel like crap. And even if that means one of your own behaviors or attitudes, don't accept that either. Ask yourself where that behavior is coming from and actively work on getting rid of it and unlearning all the crap that you've been taught and conditioned to have that behavior, and put yourself on autopilot so that other people can take advantage of you. And it's disproportionately women who are people pleasers. I'm not saying that there aren't men who are people pleasers. There are. But it's disproportionately women. Well, you know what pisses me off? Most women are raised to serve other people, while most men are raised to just have uncontrolled audacity and no shame. Sometimes, and this sounds so crazy, sometimes I look at men as a way to mold my own behavior and be like, you know what? If a man has the audacity to take you on one date and expect you to have sex with him, then you should have the audacity to expect a good promotion or to demand a raise that you are more than deserving of, or to expect just good treatment from other people. Because a lot of the time we think we have audacity when we're just asking for the bare minimum. Whereas we live in a world where a man will literally buy you a piece of chocolate and then turn the iPad towards you with the tip options. Oh, there's just a few questions on the screen that it's going to ask you to answer. But it's not even a tip as a percentage. It's the tip of his. All right, baddies. I'm going to end the episode here. Stay tuned for the next poll on my Instagram story for topics for the upcoming solo episodes that I'm going to put out. If you're following me on TikTok and YouTube but not on Instagram, make sure to follow me on Instagram because that's where all the action is. I don't really post that much anywhere else, especially especially if you want to be nosy and see what I'm up to and all that sort of stuff. So make sure you're following me there. If you want to do one final people-pleasing thing, then make sure to drop a 5-star rating for this podcast. And that's not just going to please me, it's going to please other women who need to hear the gospel of the bad bitches, because the algorithm likes it when podcasts are rated well. So make sure to drop a 5-star rating if you love it. And make sure you're subscribed to the Baddie Brief if you aren't already, my twice monthly newsletter on a patriarchy hack that you probably forgot about. And if you want to join our community on Patreon and get access to monthly bonus episodes, a monthly challenge to implement a girly law in the wild, get voting power on the girly laws, and be added to my close friends story for more nosiness, and also be part of a community of bad bitches, then make sure to join the Patreon. All the links will be in the show notes. Now, don't forget to say no, set boundaries, and that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. Until next time, stay bad and say no. Love you. Bye. And now to give a shout out to all my baddies on Patreon. Shout out to Adriana, Mina, Gemma, Priya, Katya, Irene, Naomi, Nilufar, Adelaide, Nadia, Faith, Amy, Simran, Melinda, Sophia with an M, Sophia with a K, Jada, and Yael. Shout out to all you baddies. Thank you all so much for your support.